Hey there and welcome. You know, if you've ever dreamed of pulling a perfect snow-white head of cauliflower from your own garden but thought, nah, that's way too hard, then you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are going to crack the code on growing beautiful cauliflower right from seed. Let's dive in. So, first things first, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Cauliflower has a reputation, right? For being, well, a bit of a diva in the garden. A lot of home gardeners really struggle with it, and it feels like a million things can go wrong. But here's the thing, it's not impossible, not even close. If you have the right knowledge and a solid game plan, you can absolutely nail this. And that's what we're doing today. We're gonna give you the complete blueprint with 9 essential tips that will lead you straight to a perfect harvest. You know, success with cauliflower actually begins long before you even think about putting a seed in soil. Your first 2 decisions, what kind you plant and when you plant it, are without a doubt the most critical choices you're gonna make. So here's tip number 1, and it's a game changer. These plants have this amazing built-in feature where their own leaves just naturally grow up and over the head. It's like they have their own little shield. And when you compare it to the old way, the difference is just huge. With the traditional kinds, you literally have to go out there and tie the leaves over the head yourself to stop sun damage. But with these self-blanching types, the plant does all the heavy lifting for you. It's like a built-in sun hat, which is pretty amazing. So think about it. This one simple choice gives you a whole bunch of benefits. That leaf cover keeps the heads perfectly white, which means you get a much more tender, milder flavor. It even helps protect against some pests and diseases. And the best part? It just saves you so much time and effort. All right, let's move on to our second key, which is all about mastering your planting calendar. Because look, you can have the perfect variety, but if your timing is off, you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment. When it comes to cauliflower, timing is absolutely everything. Yeah, I'm guessing this looks pretty familiar, right? Over on the left, that's the picture on the seed packet, the one we all want. And on the right, that's what summer heat often gives us instead. It's so frustrating, but we are going to close that gap for good. Because getting that perfect head, it's not about luck, it's about having the right strategy. Might sound a little backwards at first. Instead of planting in the spring, you're actually going to start your seeds in late summer. This timing is absolutely critical. Why? Because it lets you transplant your baby plants out into the garden during the mild, gentle weather of autumn. This gives them a zero-shock transition. Then, and this is the most important part, the head starts forming right when the cool, calm weather of early winter arrives. And this right here, this is the magic number. Cauliflower is at its absolute happiest when it's forming that curd somewhere between 15 and 20 degrees Celsius. That whole autumn sowing strategy we just talked about, it's designed specifically to make sure your plant hits this temperature sweet spot right when it matters most. That's how you get that incredible quality. So let's just put it side by side. It becomes so clear. Autumn sowing lines up the plant's most sensitive growth stage with perfect, cool weather. It's a recipe for success. Spring sowing does the exact opposite. It throws your plant into its most critical phase during the hottest part of the year. It's a total gamble, and one that usually ends in disappointment. Okay, let's move into the nursery. The first 4 to 6 weeks of a cauliflower's life are just incredibly important. Any stress a seedling goes through now, whether it's from not enough light, the wrong food, whatever, it can mess up the plant for its entire life. The goal here is simple: zero stress.
So what does zero stress actually mean? Well, it's a really targeted strategy to eliminate the 5 major shocks that can stunt or even kill a young plant. We're talking about sudden temperature changes, tangled roots, getting the food wrong, inconsistent watering, and of course, the shock of being moved. You get these 5 things right and you are golden. All right, let's build on that foundation. We're gonna start with the 2 most common reasons seedlings fail: not getting enough of the right kind of light and getting the wrong amount of food. Oh yeah, this is a classic sign of trouble. You've probably seen it. It's called leggy growth, and it's basically a desperate cry for help. The seedling is literally stretching itself thin, trying to find more light, which creates a weak stem that just can't support itself. What's really interesting here is just how simple the solution is. It really boils down to 3 pillars. First, the type of light. It's got to be full spectrum to mimic the sun. Second, the duration. 14 to 16 hours is the sweet spot. And third, the distance. You want to keep that light source just 15 to 30 centimeters away to give it intensity without burning the leaves. Now, nutrition is just as crucial, but it requires a really delicate touch. The source material gives us this foolproof 3-step process. First, you wait for the 2 true leaves to appear. That's the plant's way of telling you it's ready for food. Second, you always dilute your fertilizer to half strength. And third, you feed the soil, not the leaves, every week or so to build up those strong roots. And this quote just brilliantly sums it all up. Better thin than thick, better less than more. It's the golden rule of feeding seedlings. It's just a powerful reminder that with young plants, overdoing it is far, far more dangerous than underdoing it. So when in doubt, always use less. All right, next up are 2 threats that are a bit more subtle, but they are incredibly deadly. Unlike that leggy growth, these problems can sneak up on you and wipe out an entire tray of seedlings before you even know what's happening. This right here is the #1 silent killer, damping off. It's a fungal disease that absolutely loves wet, still air. The fungus attacks the stem right at the soil level, makes it rot, and the entire seedling just collapses. It's sudden, and it is devastating. But the prevention is incredibly simple. A small fan. It does 4 things at once. It circulates the air, it drops the humidity, it prevents fungus from growing, and, as a little bonus, the gentle breeze actually strengthens the stems, just like in nature. Just remember the crucial tip: avoid blowing it directly on your plants. When it comes to water, balance is everything. Sure, underwatering is bad, it causes wilting, it stunts growth, but as you can see here, overwatering is the real enemy. It literally suffocates the roots by cutting off their oxygen, and it creates the perfect breeding ground for diseases like damping off. So the goal is simple. You want soil that feels like a well-wrung-out sponge, moist but never soggy. So you've nurtured your seedlings in this perfect indoor environment. Now comes the final test, moving them into the big, unpredictable world of the garden. And this transition, this is where so many perfectly good plants meet their end. This is where that zero-shock approach becomes so critical. You can't just throw them outside. You have to put them through this gradual 10 to 14-day boot camp called hardening off. As you can see on the timeline, you just slowly increase their exposure to the sun, the wind, and temperature changes, which allows them to build up their toughness without any sudden shocks. Our source highlights 3 final, non-negotiable secrets for planting day, especially for those space-hungry plants like broccoli and cauliflower. Get the timing right, plant them at 4 to 6 weeks old, never older, give them massive spacing, and use the proper planting technique.
And when we say massive space, we mean it. For a plant like broccoli, 50 to 60 centimeters is the absolute minimum. Now, I know this might look ridiculously far apart when they're small, but that space is what allows for the airflow, the light, and the nutrient access they need for a huge, healthy harvest.
And finally, the technique itself. You want to plant deep, burying the stem up to just below the first set of true leaves. This actually encourages new roots to sprout from that buried stem, creating a much stronger anchor. And then, as soon as you plant it, you give it a deep soaking with what the source calls root-setting water to get rid of any air pockets and bond the roots to their new home.
All right, our little seedlings are in the ground, they're happy, and now we're into the main growing season. This is where consistent care and really smart feeding become absolutely everything. If there is one holy grail for growing great cauliflower, this is it. Consistent, stable moisture.
This quote right here, it just nails it. The #1 reason cauliflower fails is inconsistent watering. Think about it. Those big swings from bone-dry soil to a swampy mess, it totally stresses the plant out. And the stressed-out cauliflower is not going to form a nice, tight head for you.
So how do we find this holy grail of moisture? Well, the magic word is consistency. You're aiming for soil that's deeply moist but never ever a swamp and never a desert. The best signal is the simplest one. Just stick your finger in the dirt. If that top inch or so feels dry, it's time for a nice deep watering. And hey, try to do it in the morning or evening so the sun doesn't just evaporate it all away.
Okay, so water is 1/2 of the environment puzzle. The other half comes down to this number, 5 to 10 centimeters. Any guesses? This is your single best weapon for maintaining that perfect, stable moisture we were just talking about.
Yep, you got it. It's mulch. A nice, thick 5 to 10 centimeter layer of mulch is like a protective blanket for your cauliflower. I mean, look at all the things it does. It locks in moisture so you water less, it keeps the soil cool to prevent heat stress, it smothers weeds so they don't steal nutrients, and it even feeds the soil as it breaks down. Seriously, this step is a total game changer.
Now it's time to provide the perfect food.
This is all about mastering the plant's fuel source, and honestly, this is where most people get it wrong.
The big idea here is something called dual-phase fertilization. Now, that might sound technical, but it's really simple. A cauliflower plant has two completely different jobs in its life. Job 1, build a massive leafy structure. Job 2, use that structure to build a dense head. And you know what? It needs totally different fuel for each of those jobs.
And this is the critical moment. In that first phase, your only goal is to build a giant leaf factory. Think of those leaves as huge solar panels. And to build them, the plant is screaming for high nitrogen fuel. But, and this is the most important part, the second you see a tiny head starting to form, the mission changes completely. Now the fuel has to switch to high potassium to pack on weight and density. Getting this switch right is everything.
So let's just simplify this into a super clear two-step plan. Step 1, build the factory. For the first month or two, you're just feeding it nitrogen to get those leaves as big and healthy as possible. Then, step 2, feed the head. The instant you spot that tiny little baby head, that curd, forming, you cut off the nitrogen completely and switch over to potassium. And here's why that switch is so critical. If you keep feeding it nitrogen after the head appears, you're basically confusing the poor plant. It thinks, oh, I guess I'm still supposed to be making leaves. So it'll try to grow little leaves right up through the head, and you get that loose, leafy, disappointing mess that we're all trying to avoid.
So, who are the heroes of this second phase? Well, potassium is the absolute star. It acts like a delivery truck, taking all the sugars and energy that the leaf factory made and shipping it directly into the head. That's what makes it dense and heavy. And don't forget its trusty sidekick, boron. It's a tiny micronutrient, but it's crucial for preventing problems like a hollow stem or a brown, yucky core.
Remember at the beginning we talked about that hollow, rotting stem? Or maybe you've seen the head itself start to get these weird brown spots. Well, guess what? That's not a disease and it's not a pest. It's a sign of a very specific hidden hunger.
And the culprit is a deficiency in a micronutrient called boron. A good way to think about boron is like it's the cement holding the plant's cell walls together. If you don't have enough of it, the inside of the stem just can't form properly. And poof, it goes hollow.
But the good news is the solution is actually pretty simple. If you need a quick fix for plants that are already growing, a foliar spray with a super dilute borax solution works wonders. But for long-term prevention, which is always better, just amend your soil with a little granular boron before you even plant.
Okay, on to the second hidden hunger problem. This one is what causes those twisted, really bizarre-looking leaves we mentioned earlier. It's such a distinct look that it actually has a name: whiptail disease. Whiptail is caused by another micronutrient deficiency. This time, it's molybdenum. Now, molybdenum is super important because it's what lets the plant process the nitrogen in the soil. So without it, your plant could be sitting in perfectly good fertilizer, but it's basically starving. And that's what leads to those weird whip-like leaves. And here's a really important pro tip for you. A lot of the time, the molybdenum is actually already in your soil, but the plant can't get to it. Why? Because acidic soil locks it up, making it unavailable. So before you do anything, check your soil pH. Just getting it to a slightly alkaline level can solve the problem entirely, making it easy for your cauliflower to absorb.
And just like with boron, the fix here is super straightforward. A quick foliar spray of something called sodium molybdate can fix a problem that's already happening, or, you guessed it, amend your soil with a molybdenum fertilizer before planting to prevent it from ever being an issue.
All right, you've spotted the golden moment. You're ready to go. Now, how do you actually do the blanching? Let's open up your toolkit for success, because you've got 3 main methods to choose from. First up, we've got the classic method, tying the leaves. You want to do this on a dry afternoon so you don't trap a bunch of moisture in there. You just gather 4 to 6 of the plant's big outer leaves, pull them up and over the head like you're making a little tent, and then loosely secure them with some twine or a rubber band. The key word is loosely. You're not trying to strangle it. Just create a nice, shady canopy. Method 2 is a great improvisation for when your outer leaves just aren't big enough for the job. For this one, you'll pick a few large leaves that are closer to the head, and you gently snap their stalks. Now the key here is gently. You are not ripping them off. You're just breaking the stalk so you can fold the leaf over the head. It creates a perfect little makeshift roof. And for the perfectionists in the crowd, there is the potting method. You just find a big, opaque bucket or a pot, something light can't get through, make sure it has some holes for air to circulate, and you just place it upside down right over the entire plant. This gives you total darkness, but I'm telling you that ventilation is absolutely critical. Otherwise, you're just inviting rot. So here's a quick look to help you decide. Tying the leaves is the easiest by far, and it works great in most situations. Breaking leaves is your plan B. And potting? Well, that's for when you're aiming for that flawless, grocery store perfect head of cauliflower. But it does take the most care. For all three, the big takeaway is managing moisture and making sure air can get in. Now, once you've got your blanching method all set up, your job isn't quite done. For the next week or two, you become the guardian, watching over the plant during this final, super important phase of its life. You might think it's all about watering or fertilizing, and yeah, those things are still important. But what is the single most critical thing you need to do as the guardian of your cauliflower now?
That's it. Seriously, your main job is just to peak. You can't have an out-of-sight, out-of-mind attitude here. You have to be checking in on it regularly.
And how often should you be peaking? The perfect rhythm is about every 2 to 3 days. Just gently undo your leaves or lift up your pot, take a quick look, and then cover it right back up. And when you do peak, you're on a mission. Here's your checklist. First, check the size and firmness of the head. Is it getting bigger? Is it still tight? Then, look really carefully for any pests like slugs or aphids who love a dark, damp place to hide. And inspect for any spots of rot or mildew. And here's a big one. When you water, only water the base of the plant. You want to keep those covered leaves and the head as dry as you possibly can. After all of that careful work and all that watchful waiting, you finally arrive at the absolute best part. It's time to claim your reward and harvest that perfect, beautiful head of cauliflower. Your signal to harvest is when the head has reached the size you want. And this is key. It's still very compact and firm to the touch. If you wait until you see the little florets starting to separate and the head feels loose, you've waited just a bit too long, and the texture won't be as good. It means you get one shot to get it right. No do-overs. Success happens inside a very specific and very brief period we call the golden window. After shedding begins, a 7 to 14-day countdown starts. And yeah, the clock is officially ticking. But that clock isn't fixed. Things like temperature and the plant variety can completely change the timeline. Inside this window, your job is to watch for 3 unmistakable visual cues for peak quality. You're looking for a huge flower head, a brilliant snow white color, and a super tight, firm texture. So what happens if you miss it? Waiting even a day too long can be a disaster. If you start seeing these 2 signals, it's a clear warning that you've waited too long. A furry or rice-like surface means the plant is flowering, and that basically ruins its quality. And the damage isn't just cosmetic. It affects, well, pretty much everything. You get bad flavor, awful texture, a shorter storage life, and your market value just collapses. I mean, look at the financial hit. The value plummets. It's a staggering loss. So the second you see those perfect signals, it's time to act fast. It's time to make the cut. The technique is pretty simple. Find the base, cut below it, and just keep a few small leaves on. And remember, this is a one and done kind of harvest. You cut it once, and that's it for the plant. After that, cleaning the field is crucial. It stops pests and disease from wrecking your next crop. So there you have it. From a tiny little seed to a delicious harvest, and right back to making your soil even richer for the future. So the only real question left is, what are you going to plant next?